My sister is a highly sensitive person. A dirty doll, a broken dumpling. Either one could send her into a complete meltdown. To keep the peace, Mom and Dad gave in to her every demand without limits. She decided she didn't like having me as a sister. They didn't hesitate to send me back to our grandparents in the countryside. Later, after Grandpa and Grandma died one after another, I had no choice but to return home. They immediately established 3,672 rules for me. I couldn't touch a single blueberry that Chloe loved. Chloe liked wearing dresses, so I couldn't wear anything prettier than hers. After 20 years of their torture, I developed breast cancer and died miserably. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the first day after my grandparents' deaths. The day I came back to this house. Highly sensitive, huh? Well, let's see what's more effective. Her tears or my fists. You'll stay in this room. Mom cleared out the smallest room in the house for me. Before I could even react, tears started streaming down Chloe's face. No, that's for little Fluffy. Mom rushed to comfort her. But your sister's back now. She needs somewhere to sleep. But Chloe kept crying, sobbing. No, that's little Fluffy's room. Little Fluffy won't have a room anymore. Little Fluffy was the rabbit plushie she clutched in her arms. Because she was highly sensitive, even the tiniest things could trigger her emotional reactions. She had no friends and couldn't keep pets. That plushie was the most important thing in her world. After a few failed attempts at consoling her, Mom turned to me without hesitation. Then you'll sleep on the couch. You're going to college soon anyway. You'll live in the dorms. My response. I charged straight at my highly sensitive sister. Quick as lightning, I slapped her twice across the face. Cry, cry, cry. That's all you do. What else are you good for? Ha, you're a goddamn curse. Why don't you just die? When you die, I'll bury that stupid toy with you. Then you two can be together forever. Making me sleep on the couch. You psycho. You don't deserve. She cried louder and louder, gasping for air like she couldn't breathe. The angrier I got, the more I grabbed her hair and yanked. Cry. You love crying so much. Let me help you out. Stop and I'll beat you to death. Mom screamed and lunged at me, trying to pull me away. You little brat. What are you doing? Don't you dare hit your sister. I refused to let go of Chloe. So Mom hit and pinched me. In response, I bit down hard on Chloe's cheek. The harder Mom hit me, the harder I bit. The whole house filled with Chloe's shrill, sobbing screams. When Mom couldn't pry me off, she switched tactics, looking pitiful as she begged. Be good. Your sister's sick. Can't you be the mature one? She has a condition. Stop this. Let go. That only made me bite down harder. In my past life, it was exactly like this. Everything in the house had to accommodate my highly sensitive sister. At first, it was just giving up my room, not competing for snacks. Later, I got into college. She cried because she didn't get into college. I was forced to downgrade to a vocational school. I wanted to work. She cried because my confidence made her jealous. So I could only stay home and take care of her. Even when I had a boyfriend and wanted to get married, she cried. Whenever she cried, Mom and Dad would force me to compromise and give in, just to avoid her ear-splitting wailing. It got to the point where I became an invisible servant in that house. I wouldn't let go. Mom paced frantically. Finally, she said, "The room's yours. The room's yours." Only then did I release my bite. I have to say I bit down so hard. My jaw aches now, rubbing my chin. I watched Mom hold Chloe as they cried together, mumbling complaints about me. I just sneered sarcastically. She's mentally unstable and can't control herself. And you won't do anything about it. So why keep her at home to terrorize people? Can't you send her to a psychiatric hospital? At those words, Chloe cried even harder, tears falling in huge drops as she mumbled. I'm not crazy, Sister Wah. Mom looked heartbroken, hugging her and comforting her non-stop. My baby's not crazy. My baby's just too sensitive. That's all. It's okay. It's okay. Then she reached out to discipline me, but I grabbed her hand and shoved her away hard. I didn't hit her. Instead, I went on a rampage, smashing everything in the house. He's not. Then why are you all walking on eggshells? Why the hell are you treating me like this? In my past life, I actually felt some pity for her. I thought it wasn't her fault she was like this. But the result was that Mom, Dad and I all got dragged into the swamp, becoming nutrients for her emotions. I turned to walk into what should have been my room, then realized, wait, this room was the smallest in the house. Barely had a window, almost no sunlight. Completely uncomfortable. Why should I live in a room like this? So instead, I stormed into Mom and Dad's room and threw all their stuff out. I'm taking your room. I don't want that crappy room. You can refuse, but then I'll just have to inconvenience myself and share a room with Chloe. After all, her room's the biggest, the best, with the floor-to-ceiling window. I looked at Chloe, sneering as I tilted my head and cracked my knuckles loudly. Mom immediately said, "You can have it. You can have it." When Dad came home that day, He was furious. I completely lost it, pounding on the bedroom door like a madman. Come out, you little brat. Come out. How dare you bully your mother and sister? I blocked the door with the wardrobe, put on noise-canceling headphones, and calmly worked through my practice problems. It wasn't until the next day when I tried to leave for school that I discovered the door had been locked with a chain. Mom and Dad hadn't gone to work. They sat in the living room coldly telling me, "Since you won't behave, we need to teach you a proper lesson." They thought I'd be scared, that I'd beg for mercy. They even said outright, "Likes to go crazy, likes to solve problems with violence. Now we've locked her up. Let's see how she solves this with violence." I simply closed the bedroom door. Then I called all my teachers, classmates and relatives. My parents locked me in my room. They're trying to starve me to death. Please come save me. I'd known for a long time what kind of people my parents were. With Chloe, they were gentle as spring rain, infinitely tender. But they're human. Of course. They had their own emotions. Normal me became their punching bag. Whenever I made Chloe cry, they'd use various methods to educate me, until I learned my lesson and didn't dare do it again. I always thought they were just desperate because of Chloe. But after I died, I heard their anguish sobs. How could the second one be so weak? So useless? We wanted to train her properly, so when we're old, she could take care of the first one. Now she went and died before us. Their oppression of me was about domesticated me, so that after they were gone, I take care of Chloe. The relatives arrived first. As soon as they saw the chain on the door, they started condemning Mom and Dad. We hate to say this, but the older one's already not right in the head. Now you're abusing the younger one too. Then came the teachers and classmates. Mom and Dad were surrounded, receiving warnings about morality and the law in front of outsiders. They couldn't hold their heads up, so they quickly removed the chain. Even though Chloe kept crying beside them, they couldn't spare any attention for her. I walked out of the room, also covering my face and complaining tearfully. "Sister's so scary. She doesn't sleep at night. Just cries. Dad's like a lunatic, too. Just yelling and screaming." With my dramatic portrayal, everyone learned I came from a family of psychos. My sister had obvious symptoms of mental illness. Mom and Dad's emotions were very abnormal, too. Mom and Dad, who cared so much about appearances, completely broke down and didn't dare go out for a long time. Dad had wanted to hit me, just like in my past life. I immediately fought back. Grabbing a chair, I hurled it at him. I might not match a grown man in strength, but I could use tools, couldn't I? That battle ended with all the chairs and tables in the house smashed to pieces. Dad got hit in the arm. Clutching his hand, he glared at me viciously. I leaned my face toward him. "Hit me. Go ahead. You hit me, I'll call the cops on you." I was willing to go all out and make a scene with them. That made them not dare to touch me, even when I competed with Chloe for dresses, fruit, everything I could grab, making Chloe cry from morning till night, until her eyes swelled up and she couldn't cry anymore. They could only think about separating me and Chloe. So Dad voluntarily suggested move into the dorms. This house can't keep being a war zone. The dorm room smelled like someone else's feet and regret. For beds, 3 empty, 1 occupied by a girl who hadn't looked up from her phone since I walked in. I didn't care. After the past 2 weeks, silence was a luxury. My ears still rang with phantom screams. I threw my bag on the bottom bunk near the window. My room now. No chains, no crying, no parents hovering like anxious ghosts. Just me and the smell of feet. The phone girl finally glanced up. "You're the new one? Heard you got in a fight with your dad." "He started it," I said, pulling out my math textbook. "I finished it." She snorted. "Cool. I'm May. Don't touch my snacks." Deal. For 3 days, the dorm was a sanctuary. I went to class, ate in the cafeteria, and slept without dreaming of past lives. I'd almost forgotten what normal felt like. Almost. Then my mother called. I let it ring. It rang again. Then a text. "Your sister hasn't eaten in 2 days. She misses you." I laughed out loud. May looked up from her noodles. "You good?" "My family," I said, "is a masterpiece of delusion." The truth was Chloe didn't miss me. She missed her punching bag. Without me, who would trigger her tears? Who would give her the exquisite misery of being a victim? My parents had spent 2 decades perfecting the art of enabling her. They trained me to be the villain in her story. And now the villain had walked off the set. They didn't know what to do with themselves. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't reply to the text. Instead, I sent a group message to my relatives, the same ones who'd seen the chain on the door. "Mom says Chloe isn't eating. I'm worried. Can someone check on them? I can't go back. I'm too scared." Within hours, my aunt was at their doorstep. Then my uncle. Then a cousin who worked in social services. My parents, who had spent years hiding Chloe's condition behind closed doors, now had an audience. I heard the details through the family grapevine. Chloe had indeed stopped eating. But not because she missed me. because I'd bitten her cheek, and she'd developed a small infection. Nothing serious, a course of antibiotics would fix it. But my parents, in their infinite wisdom, had decided to spin it as a tragic separation anxiety. My aunt wasn't buying it. She has a fever from a bite wound, my aunt reported loudly enough for the neighbor to hear. That's not missing her sister. That's needing a doctor. My mother stammered. My father paced. Chloe, ever the performer, wailed on cue. I listened to the gossip from my dorm bed, smiling so wide my jaw ached. The same jaw that had bitten into Chloe's cheek. Poetic, really. Dorm life had one problem: it was temporary. The school required first years to live on campus, but after that, we were on our own. I had no money, no job, and no intention of going back to that house. So I got creative. There was a scholarship for students from difficult family backgrounds. I applied. There was a part-time job at the campus library, shelving books for minimum wage. I took it. There was a professor, Dr. Lin, who taught abnormal psychology. I went to her office hours. I'm writing a paper on family systems and emotional regulation. I lied. Do you have any book recommendations? Dr. Lin was a small woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She looked at me like she could see straight through the lie. You're not writing a paper. You're trying to understand your sister. I didn't flinch. Is it that obvious? I've been teaching for 20 years. I've met 100 versions of you. She leaned back. Highly sensitive person is a nice term. It sounds gentle, doesn't it? But what you're describing, the meltdowns, the control, the way your parents rearranged their entire lives around her mood, that's not sensitivity. That's a personality disorder with an enabling audience. I felt something crack open in my chest. Not painfully. More like a window being forced wide after years of being painted shut. So I'm not crazy for hating her? Hate is a strong word. Dr. Lin's eyes softened, just a fraction. But you're not wrong to want your own life. The question is, what are you going to do about it? That was the turning point. Not a dramatic fight or a tearful confession. Just a professor and a student, talking quietly in a cramped office, while the campus buzzed outside. I started reading. Case studies, research papers, memoirs of people who'd grown up with siblings like Chloe. The patterns were always the same. The golden child, the scapegoat, the parents who loved one child so much they forgot the other needed love too. I wasn't special. I wasn't uniquely cursed. I was just another kid who'd been fed to the family monster. Knowledge was the first weapon. The second was money. I worked every job I could find. Library, tutoring, cleaning dorms over summer break. I saved every penny. I opened a bank account my parents didn't know about. I told myself, 2 years. Survive 2 years and you'll never have to go back. But my parents had other plans. Winter break. 3 weeks. No dorm, no excuses. My mother called every day for a week. You have to come home. It's the holidays. Family should be together. I thought about my past life. The holidays had always been Chloe's stage. She'd cry if the decorations weren't perfect, cry if the food wasn't right, cry if someone else opened a present before her. My parents would scramble to fix it, and I would disappear into the background, invisible and resentful. I'll come, I said finally. But I'm bringing a friend. A friend. My mother's voice went tight. What kind of friend? A witness, I said and hung up. The friend was May. She didn't have family to visit anyway, and she was curious about the chaos I'd described. You make it sound like a reality show, she said, packing her bag. I'm in. When we arrived at the house, nothing had changed. Same cracked driveway, same overgrown bushes, same faint smell of Chloe's lavender diffuser leaking through the windows. But I was different. I walked through the front door like I owned it. Chloe was on the couch, clutching little Fluffy. Her cheek had healed, but she developed a new tic, a little twitch under her left eye, probably from stress. She saw me and immediately started crying. You're back, she whispered, like it was a tragedy. Missed you too, I said, dropping my bag. This is May. She's sleeping in my room. What room? My mother appeared from the kitchen, apron tied around her waist. She looked older, more tired. The chain incident had aged her. You don't have a room anymore. We turned it into storage. I blinked. In my past life, that room had stayed empty for years, a monument to my displacement. Now they'd filled it with boxes, erasing me. Fine, I said. Then May and I will take the master bedroom. You and Dad can sleep on the couch. You can't. My mother started. Watch me. I grabbed May's hand and walked toward the back of the house. Come on. The bed's huge. Plenty of room. Chloe's crying escalated. Not the fake, performative kind. This was real. She was losing control and she knew it. Mom, she gasped. Mom, make her stop. My mother stood frozen, caught between 20 years of habit and the sudden, horrible realization that I wasn't playing by the rules anymore. Dad came home an hour later. He saw May on the couch, eating his chips, and me in the master bedroom, rearranging his closet. His face went through 5 expressions in 3 seconds. Confusion, anger, calculation, more anger, and finally, a kind of weary resignation. "You're pushing it," he said quietly, standing in the doorway. "No," I said, hanging one of his shirts on the floor. "I'm establishing boundaries. There's a difference. We're still your parents. You stopped being my parents the day you put a chain on my door." I turned to face him. "Now you're just 2 people I used to live with. And if you try to lock me up again, I'll call the police, Child Protective Services, and every news outlet in the province. Want to test me?" He stared at me for a long moment. Then he walked away. That night, I slept in the master bed, May snoring softly beside me. My parents slept on the couch, backs aching, while Chloe sobbed herself to sleep in her perfect room with the floor-to-ceiling windows. In my past life, I would have felt guilty. I would have thought, they're still my family. I should be the mature one. But I'd tried that. I'd been mature for 20 years, and it had killed me. This time, I pulled the blanket up to my chin and smiled into the dark. The 3 weeks of winter break became a siege. I didn't yell. I didn't hit. I didn't bite. Violence had its place, but it was a blunt instrument. Now I needed something sharper. Consistency. I refused every unreasonable demand. I ignored every tear. I treated Chloe's meltdowns like weather, unpleasant, but not worth changing my plans for. The first week, Chloe cried for 6 hours straight. Her voice went hoarse. My parents ran back and forth, trying to soothe her, but she wouldn't stop. Because I wouldn't give in. "Just let her have the blueberry muffins," my mother begged me. "She loves them." "So do I said, eating the last one. "She can have the crumbs." Chloe wailed. My father tried a different approach. Reason. "You're going to college. You'll have your own life soon. Why can't you just be kind to her for a few more years?" "Because kindness," I said, "is what killed me last time." He didn't understand. How could he? I was talking about a past life, a death they'd never know about. To him, I was just a bitter daughter, nursing old grudges. Fine. Let him think that. The second week, Chloe stopped crying and started getting mean. She knocked over my backpack, scattered my notes across the floor, and told May I was mentally unstable. May laughed in her face. "Honey, your whole family is mentally unstable. She's the only one who knows how to handle it." Chloe ran to my mother, sobbing about the mean guest. My mother came to confront me, but I was already on the phone with my aunt, describing the situation in cheerful detail. "Yes, Chloe threw my things again. Mom wants to kick my friend out. Can you believe it?" My aunt arrived within the hour, armed with casserole and judgment. By the 3rd week, the house was a battlefield. Not of violence, of wills. My parents were exhausted. Chloe was hoarse. And I was free. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt like I wasn't drowning. On the last day of break, I packed my bag and stood in the living room. Chloe was curled on the couch, little Fluffy pressed to her chest. She looked small, pitiful. In my past life, that look would have broken me. I would have thought, she can't help it. She's sick. I would have stayed, cleaned up the mess, become the caretaker they wanted. Now I just shrugged. "See you never," I said and walked out. May followed, whistling. College was my real life. The house was just a place I visited when I had to. Holidays, a few weekends, one miserable Lunar New Year, where Chloe threw a tantrum over the color of the envelopes, and I spent the whole evening on my phone, ignoring her. I graduated with honors. I got a job in the city, far enough that I couldn't commute, close enough that my parents couldn't pretend I'd disappeared. I rented a small apartment with May, who'd become something like a sister. A real one. The kind who stole your food but also stole your enemies. My parents called less and less. I think they finally understood. I wasn't coming back. Not to live, not to caretake, not to sacrifice myself on the altar of Chloe's feelings. Chloe herself became a ghost in my life. I heard about her through relatives, the way you hear about a distant disaster. She dropped out of community college. She couldn't hold a job. She'd alienated every friend she'd ever made. My parents were still enabling her, still running themselves ragged trying to make her happy, still failing. In my past life, that knowledge would have filled me with grim satisfaction. Now it just made me tired. I went to therapy. Dr. Lin had recommended a colleague, a woman named Sue who specialized in family trauma. The first session, she asked me a simple question. "What do you want?" I didn't know how to answer. For 2 lifetimes, I'd wanted revenge. I'd wanted Chloe to suffer, my parents to admit they were wrong, the universe to validate every wound I'd carried. But sitting in that quiet office, with the afternoon light slanting through the blinds, I realized revenge was just another cage. "I want to stop thinking about them," I said finally. "I want to wake up and not feel angry." Dr. Sue nodded. "That's a good start." It took 2 years. 2 years of talking, crying, writing letters I never sent, and learning to hear Chloe's name without my chest tightening. I wasn't healed. I didn't believe in that word anymore. But I was different. The past was a scar, not an open wound. And then 3 years after I'd walked out of that house, my father called. I almost didn't answer. The number was saved in my phone, Dad, do not answer. But I was between meetings, bored, and curious about what fresh disaster had prompted contact. Hello. It's your mother, she said, which was strange because it was my father's phone. She's in the hospital. I sat down on the nearest bench. The city hummed around me. Traffic, conversations, a street vendor yelling about fresh oranges. None of it felt real. Chloe. Yes. My mother's voice cracked. She hurt herself. On purpose. I waited. The words were there, hovering between us. She tried to kill herself. But my mother couldn't say it. She could barely say the first part. Is she alive? I asked. Yes. But she's not stable. The doctors say she needs support. Family support. A pause. We need you to come. There it was. The trap, reborn. In my past life, I would have gone. I would have dropped everything, rushed to the hospital, held Chloe's hand while she cried, and been slowly consumed by her need. I would have told myself it was the right thing to do, the compassionate thing, while my own life crumbled around me. But this wasn't my past life. No, I said. What? No. I'm not coming. I stood up, started walking. My legs felt steady. She needs professional help, not me. I'm not a therapist, Mom. I never was. But she's your sister. She's been my sister for 2 lifetimes, I said, and the words came out calm, almost gentle. And I've already died for her once. I'm not doing it again. I hung up. For weeks afterward, I expected the guilt. It didn't come. I expected nightmares, reliving Chloe's wails, my parents' cold faces. They didn't come either. Instead, I dreamed of the countryside. My grandparents' house, with its creaky floors and the big tree in the yard where I'd climbed as a child. They were dead now, both of them, but in the dreams they were alive. My grandfather would make tea, and my grandmother would brush my hair. And no one cried unless they'd actually been hurt. I woke up from those dreams with tears on my face, but not sad tears. Missing tears. My aunt called a week later, delivering the news in her blunt, no-nonsense way. Chloe's in a facility now. A good one, with actual doctors. Your parents finally ran out of money and excuses. A pause. They're asking about you though. Want to know if you'll visit. Will it help her? Probably not. But it might help you. I thought about it. I talked to Dr. Sue. I talked to May, who said, if you go, I'm coming with you. That girl threw my chips on the floor once. I still haven't forgiven her. In the end, I went alone. May offered, but this was something I had to do by myself. The facility was clean, quiet, and smelled like antiseptic. Chloe had a private room. My parents' last attempt to buy her happiness, but it was still a hospital. There were no floor-to-ceiling windows here. Just a small window with a view of a parking lot. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not just thin, diminished. Her hair was greasy, her eyes dull, and the twitch under her left eye had spread to her whole face. She flinched when I walked in. Hi, Chloe, I said, sitting in the chair by her bed. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, for the first time in her life, she didn't cry. You came, she whispered. I came. I agreed. Not because Mom and Dad asked. Not because I feel sorry for you. Because I wanted to see for myself. See what? Whether you're still the same person who ruined my life. She flinched again. I didn't mean to. I know. And I did know. Chloe wasn't a villain. She was a wound that had been allowed to fester. My parents had poured their love into her like medicine, but they'd used the wrong kind. Instead of healing her, they'd made her sicker. But meaning not to, I continued, doesn't undo the damage. You broke things, Chloe. You broke me. And I don't think you even noticed until it was too late. She started crying then. Softly, without the wailing and gasping I remembered. Just tears, sliding down her hollow cheeks. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. Was it real? I didn't know. I couldn't trust my judgment anymore. In my past life, I would have believed her. I would have opened my arms and let her back in, only to be destroyed again. But this wasn't my past life. I forgive you, I said, and watched her face light up with desperate hope. But forgiveness doesn't mean we're sisters again. It means I'm done carrying the weight of what you did. I stood up. Get better, Chloe. For yourself. Not for me. Not for Mom and Dad. For you. I walked out. Behind me, she called my name, once, twice, 3 times. I didn't look back. The next few years were quiet. Deliberately quiet. I worked, I saved, I went to therapy. I started running in the mornings, a habit I'd picked up from a coworker, and discovered I liked the feeling of my lungs burning. It was clean pain, the kind that meant you were growing stronger. May got a girlfriend, a soft-spoken artist who painted flowers and never raised her voice. They moved into a bigger apartment, and I found a small place of my own. A studio with a window that faced east, so the morning sun woke me gently. I didn't cut off my family entirely. That was the old me's fantasy. Complete separation, a clean break, a life where they didn't exist. But the new me understood that family was like a scar. It didn't go away. You just learned to live with it. I called my parents once a month, on a Sunday afternoon. Short conversations, carefully scripted. How are you? Fine. How's work? Good. Do you need anything? No. They never asked about my life anymore. They'd stopped pretending to care. But they didn't ask me to come home either. The chain incident had taught them something, even if they'd never admit it. Chloe stayed in the facility for 2 years. Then she moved to a group home, then to a supervised apartment. She had a job now, something small, data entry, and a therapist she saw twice a week. She wasn't better. People like Chloe didn't get better. But she was stable, manageable. My parents visited her every Sunday. They'd aged badly, both of them. My father had developed a tremor in his left hand, and my mother had stopped dyeing her hair. They looked like what they were. People who had spent their whole lives trying to save one child and lost the other in the process. I didn't feel sorry for them. But I didn't feel angry either. Mostly, I felt nothing. And that, I decided, was victory enough. When I was 28, I had a dream about my grandmother. In the dream, I was small again, maybe 7 or 8, sitting at the kitchen table in the countryside. My grandmother was making dumplings, her hands quick and sure, folding the dough into perfect little crescents. You're angry, she said, not looking up. Yes, I said in the dream. Good. Anger keeps you alive. She set a dumpling on the tray. But don't let it keep you company. That's what your sister did. She made friends with her feelings, and they ate her alive. What should I do instead? My grandmother finally looked at me. Her eyes were the same as I remembered, warm, crinkled at the corners, holding a lifetime of quiet wisdom. Live, she said. Just live. And when you forget how, come visit me in your dreams. I woke up crying. Not from sadness, from relief. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I knew what I wanted. Not revenge. Not justice. Not an apology. Just a life. My own life. Small, quiet, ordinary. Full of morning runs and east-facing windows and Sunday phone calls that lasted exactly 3 minutes. I got out of bed, made coffee and started the day. 10 years after I walked out of that house, I got a letter. Handwritten on cream-colored paper, with a return address I didn't recognize. Dear sister, I'm writing this because my therapist said I should. She thinks it will help me accept responsibility. I think it will just make you angry. But here goes. I remember the day you bit me. Not because it hurt, although it did, but because it was the first time someone fought back. Everyone else in my life had given in. Mom, Dad, the teachers, the neighbors. They all treated me like I was made of glass. But you didn't. You bit me, and the world didn't end. I'm not saying I'm grateful. That would be twisted. But I've been thinking about it a lot, and I realized something. You were the only one who treated me like a person. A terrible person, sure. But a person. Everyone else treated me like a disease. I'm still sick. I'll always be sick. But I'm not as sick as I was. And I think that's partly because of you. I don't expect you to write back. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. What I did to you. The room, the rules, the way Mom and Dad forgot you existed because I was crying too loud. I'm sorry, Chloe. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer with my other important things. My grandmother's recipes, my college diploma, a photo of May and me at her wedding. I didn't write back. I didn't need to. The past was the past. I had a life to live. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was ready to live it.